Going to talk to Melinda Manore this afternoon. So welcome.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us. It's been a long day for you, I'm sure.
Well, not that bad.
So I just wanted to start by asking you a little bit about your early career. Maybe where you grew up, where you went to college, what did you major in, those types of things. And then in particular, down the way, when did you find out about Acsm and how did that intersect with your career?
All right, so I will do a brief history.
No, wait,
So
we want a long history.
I grew up in rural Montana and actually went to Seattle Pacific University, my undergraduate degree in home economics, and taught high school for 3 years, knowing I always wanted to go on, and nutrition piqued my interest because I had it as an undergraduate.
Where did you teach high school?
So I taught in Montana and in Washington, in the state of Washington.
Mm-hmm.
And then after 3 years of teaching, I decided, well, I do want to go on and get a graduate degree. So I did my master's in health education at the University of Oregon in Eugene. And there I took more nutrition classes, and maybe I had one exercise science class, but we were all mixed together, so I knew some of the exercise science graduate students. And it was when I was finishing my master's degree, I started doing some running. I'd had a skiing accident and couldn't do much, and someone says, yes, you can do more physical activity, even if you have a reconstructed knee. And of course, I didn't think you could. Mm-hmm. And so I got into that, and I decided I really wanted to combine nutrition and exercise.
Of course, in Eugene.
In Eugene, running capital of the world, all right? And so then I started running marathons,
wow.
and thought,
That's
this knee can actually do more than I thought it could do.
Fantastic.
And so then I started looking around. My husband was going to stay in Eugene to finish his Ph.D., and I thought, well, where can I get a degree in nutrition that I can combine? Who's doing that? And up the road was Oregon State University, and they just happened to have a nutrition faculty that was doing a little bit of exercise. Because at the time, there wasn't much information on if you exercise, do you have different nutritional needs?
Sure.
We knew about carbohydrate, but that was kind of about as far as we went with it.
What time period were you doing your master's?
I went to the University of Oregon in 1978, I think.
Okay.
So then I started my Ph.D. in 1980 in nutrition and did a minor in exercise science.
Oh, wow.
And maybe, I don't know if you've interviewed Dr. Mcsoon?
No.
Okay,
No.
so he was actually the dean of the College of Health and Human Sciences at the time, and he was on my committee.
At Oregon State?
At Oregon State, as the exercise person.
Okay.
And so his name is Dr. Michael Mcsoon. So he was the dean as well as he was on my committee. And so I was doing nutrition and exercise, doing metabolic feeding studies with active and sedentary individuals and females. And so
And this is the early 80s.
This is the early 80s.
This is good stuff early on.
Early. So now I was actually looking at vitamin B6 and glycogen phosphorylase because it's, it's required for metabolism and all those kinds of things. And so then I finished my Ph.D. and I really want to do nutrition and exercise research, but I have a minor in exercise science, I have a Ph.D. in nutrition, but I can't go to a school unless they have an exercise science department because I need an exercise physiologist working with me. I need a lab.
Yeah.
I need a bench lab for the nutrition part, but I need a physical lab for all the exercise testing. And so my husband and I ended up going to Arizona State University, which they had a great exercise science department at the time. And Dr. Jim Skinner was then the director of the Exercise and Sport Research Institute there. And I was across campus in another department where nutrition was housed. And this is the most amazing story of how you can have an impact on someone else's life. My husband was moving my boxes into my office. I did not know a soul on the campus except the people who interviewed me. And this strange man walked into my office and he said, my name is Dr. Jim Skinner, and we're going to work together.
How did it even know you were there?
Dr. Michael Mcsoon, who Jim Skinner had known forever because I think they went to graduate school together, called him up and said, there's a new faculty
Isn't
member
that
coming. I was
amazing?
on her committee.
Wow.
And you ought to work with her because she really wants to do nutrition and exercise.
That's a great story.
And
Wow.
he mentored me. He was a full professor. I was very naive. I don't know what's going on. And I joined in on his research projects. He mentored me in grant writing. He said, and he was the one that said to me, you ought to come to the American College of Sports Medicine because they have people there who are interested in nutrition and exercise. And if you think of it, I didn't have a home in terms of where to go. I went to the nutrition meetings and there were a few people who crossed over.
See what you're saying. Yeah, sure.
And in general, when I started looking for jobs, people said, who would ever want to have someone who does the kind of research you do? When I was looking at nutrition departments.
Wow.
And so I felt, okay, like people aren't really that interested in what I do. But Jim said to me, yes, come to ACSM. I think they would like what you would do. And this is the other way he impacted me. There was another person in ACSM, and I'm sure you haven't interviewed her, but her name was Dr. Gail Butterfield. She was
I remember
very
her
influential in ACSM. And he said, and I knew her work because she was doing vitamin B6 and protein work.
I remember, yeah.
And so I knew her research, but I didn't know her. And so he invited me to ACSM, and he also said, one of the other things I'm going to do is I'm going to invite Gail over from California to Arizona to give a talk, and I want you two to go to lunch.
Oh, nice. Wow.
And so it was with Gail that we started with Janice Thompson, Gail Butterfield, George Brooks, and Chris.
Oh, Chris Clark?
Not Chris.
Clark.
I'm sorry. Here,
That's all right.
Nancy Clark. Excuse me. There's
Oh,
Chris
yeah.
and Nancy.
Yeah,
Nancy Clark.
yeah.
We started the nutrition interest group in
ACSM.
ACSM.
Yeah. Wow.
And so it's a small world. And then Gail and I started writing a textbook together on nutrition and exercise. So that's, somebody sort of appreciated that you needed to cross over. And so that's how I got engaged
And
at ACSM.
what year did you go to Tempe?
1984. That's why I know exactly how long you've been in.
Yeah,
Seattle.
okay.
Yeah.
And then, how long did you stay there?
17 years. Left as a full professor.
Wow.
Did many research projects with Jim Skinner. And our graduate students crossed over. So some of those graduate students took a lot of nutrition. Some of them actually got their RDs in addition to their PhDs. So we had a lot of crossover. And also I was on a lot of other committees in the exercise science department. So it was a great experience for me. It was a great opportunity because I learned a lot.
So where was the nutrition department located,
So the
organizationally?
It was in the same college.
Oh, okay.
It was in the College of Liberal Arts and Sciences, the same college that exercise science was in. But it was in a different department. It was an old home ec department that was then called what was the name of the college? Family and Consumer Sciences or something like that. And then 2 or 3 years before I left, we separated and made our own department of nutrition. And then I left.
So when you went there, your husband and you both got jobs there?
Yes,
That's
which we didn't
pretty,
know.
Pretty neat.
We did not know that was so unusual. We were naive
It
to
is
assume
yeah.
that faculty members did this. So he's a statistician, so he was across campus in a whole other department. So anyway, so it was, an interesting experience, and I grew up a lot as a faculty member, and I appreciated having very good mentors, and I wouldn't be in ACSM probably without Jim.
Oh, yeah, yeah. So, yeah, you've been in a long time.
Yeah, and he's actually, here at this meeting.
I just saw him yesterday and visited for a while.
Yeah, so it's
he's a great guy.
So so then I got involved in ACSM, the Nutrition Interest Group. I've been on the board of trustees. I'm currently vice president of ACSM, and program committee and all those things. And now ACSM has a very strong nutrition track that they do at their annual meeting, and also have a nutrition track in the summit.
I was going to say a very big presence here.
Yes, a very big presence here. And so I've been on the summit committee, planning committee, years back and ran the nutrition track for the summit and wrote for the ACSM Health and Fitness Journal, wrote the nutrition column for the journal. And then my tenure ended because, you know, I was on like 5 or 6 years. And then I've just now been invited to come back. I've been away for a while, and I've just been invited to come back.
With the journal?
Well, I'm an associate editor on the journal, and I have been since it started. But I've been asked to come back to be on the planning committee for the summit.
I see.
The summit planning committee.
With Mike, and he's the new chair.
Yes, and Mike's the new chair.
So were you on the journal with Larry too?
Oh, I started with it.
Oh, okay. So you were right at the get-go.
Yeah, and I also came to the summit when Larry was in charge.
Okay.
And let me tell you, you came with your homework done.
Yeah.
If you probably
Well,
didn't
you know, within the context of ACSM, that was a very big move, a good move, I think. But within the context of the larger fitness industry, what a development the journal has been, and the summit, of course.
And I have quite a following. And of course, I was around the summit when it first got started. And the reason I even got involved in that part is because I'm a real believer in this bridge the gap, the science to practice. And we need to, one, do a better job of communicating the science to the practitioner. And I'm as guilty as everyone. I want to tell you everything I know. And you just can't do that very effectively.
Right.
You have to really say, what's the message I want to present, and what do I want people to walk away with? And I think it's a skill. I think it's something you have to constantly practice, but I think ACSM has done a nice job of trying to do that for people.
And packaging it and getting the right people and
and they work hard.
And all that, yeah.
It is probably one of the only meetings I go to that I have seen so much effort put into getting really good people to come and present. And if you don't do a good job, you're probably not invited back.
Yeah. So how did you make the jump from Tempe back to, or you're at Corvallis now, right?
Yes.
Or
Oregon.
At Oregon
So,
State.
Looking to move out of the big city, because Phoenix metro area is now large. I mean, if you haven't been there, it's
Not for a long time.
3+ million.
Yeah.
Grew 1 million people over there.
Wow.
One of the things that I'm very much a small town person, and so is my husband, and we're very much outdoor family. And, you know, when it got that we could never get to the hills, it took longer to get to the hills than our hike was, we said, okay, we need to be in someplace smaller. And so we started looking for jobs, but we want to stay in the West because, you know, from the West. And so faculty position, well, a chair position came up at Oregon State. And so I went there as a chair of nutrition. And
Are they a separate department there?
No, now they're combined. And so when then I went as a chair of the Department of Nutrition. At the same time, there were 2 colleges. Did you interview Tim White?
Oh, I no, because he's gone elsewhere now. I never get to see him. But
So when
at the time, I knew Tim very, very well.
Yeah, so Tim White was the Dean of Health and Human Performance, and there was another dean over the old home economics college, consumer sciences, I can't remember what they called it. And so Tim moved from being dean to provost, and when he moved to being provost, that meant that dean position was open, and the dean of this college had left. And so there were interim deans when I went and was hired as department chair, and he merged the two to our current college, which is the College of Health and Human Sciences.
Ah, good.
So he merged them, and the dean he hired was a nutrition person. And after we'd lost so many faculty members at the university because of these early retirements, especially we lost him in nutrition. So when our dean came after about a year, she said, well, I was chair for 3 years, but toward the end of that tenure, she said, I think we really need to merge those departments. There's a lot of interest in nutrition and exercise nationally, and also we were so small that we needed a little more synergy. And so she merged the departments, and when she merged the departments, I stepped down as chair. It was going to be a big department, and if I wanted, I try to do everything, and you can't be a department chair and do research and write grants and mentor students and teach. and be engaged professionally in organizations.
I was acting chair for 13 months, and I just couldn't wait to not do it.
Yeah, no,
You
it's
know,
very,
it's
and I'm involved in ACSM, but I'm also involved in the American Dietetic Association
Yeah.
because I'm a dietitian.
Yeah.
And we have a subgroup called Sports and Cardiovascular Nutritionists, and they also cover the wellness and eating disorders. And so I was pretty engaged in that group, which has a big presence that comes to ACSM.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was like, you can't do everything.
Yeah.
So I stepped down, and now I'm just a regular old faculty member.
Which is fun.
Just a regular old faculty member.
It's interesting that Tim White was George Brooks's
Exactly.
doctoral student,
Yes. It's
and
a
the way
small
all
world.
those things sort of
Yes, and
interact.
Gail and Jim, and Gail and George Brooks started our nutrition interest group.
Mm-hmm.
And Gail was very influential in convincing George that nutrition can impact your research studies.
Yeah.
If you're doing exercise studies, whether the people come in fed or not, all sorts of things,
Right.
what they're eating. So she had a big impact. And just so you know, we are, for the first time at this coming ACSM in Denver, giving the Gail Butterfield Travel Award.
I didn't know that.
Yes,
I hadn't heard
in
that
honor
yet.
of her.
Oh, good.
Yes.
That's great.
To graduate students coming to ACSM that do nutrition and
Oh,
exercise.
fantastic. Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, and our nutrition interest group also gives awards to abstracts to students presenting who do nutrition and exercise, who cross over.
Mm-hmm. Wonderful. Well,
So-
did you and Gail ever finish that book you talked about earlier? or
Well,
what?
yes, we started the textbook. It was a new concept. So the concept of the nutrition and exercise, it's called nutrition, sport nutrition. It's called nutrition, sport nutrition for exercise and health. You'd think I'd get the title right. Was that we wanted to present nutrition based on systems. So instead of talking about all the vitamins and all the minerals, it's talking about the bone nutrients, the blood
Oh,
nutrients.
sure. Okay. That's a good way to
Yeah,
visualize it.
yes. And so antioxidant nutrients as a group, how do they impact the body? So what we did is we started the textbook, and Gail was not doing well, not feeling well, not getting her section of the textbook written, and so we said, okay, we should probably need to get someone else to help us. And so we were thinking, who can we get to help us? And the person we asked to help us was Janice Thompson, who is a former board member and ACSM vice president.
She's in England. isn't
She's
she?
at the University of Bristol because
Yeah,
she was a doctoral student of Jim Skinner
I
and
didn't
myself.
know that part.
Yes.
Okay.
And she went to Gill to do her postdoc.
I'll be darned.
And so I'd done a lot of writing with her. We'd done a lot of separate projects from her dissertation together. And so she came on, and so she's the co-author. And at about the time that that textbook was being finished, and we wrote the first joint paper on nutrition and athletic performance with ACSM and the American Dietetic Association
Now-
and the Dietitians of Canada.
Can you give me the date? Not a quiz. We could find
2000 was the first time that position paper was published in 2000.
Okay.
Gail passed away. She had a brain
Okay.
tumor.
it. Yeah.
So,
Yeah, she was so active
Yeah.
there for a while, and then all of a sudden,
so she was the third author on that paper, and the other two, myself and the other author, Susan Barr from Canada, finished it. And the last thing Gail did for us on the book is she wrote the foreword to the book. Now, the
Oh.
book has since been revised, but yeah, she was, I think, 54 years old when she passed away.
wow. Who published that?
Human Kinetics
They
published it.
did,
Yeah,
okay.
they published a textbook.
Is it still in print?
Yeah,
Another
well, we
edition?
just
You're
revised
a
it
new
in 2009, and another, Janice is on it, myself is on it, and we brought in one of my former graduate students to help us. It's a big project,
Oh, I'm
because
sure.
Janice and I published 3 other textbooks together.
Oh, gee. Okay.
So it's not, takes a lot of time.
And what are the other ones?
It's nutrition. So there's the science of nutrition, which is for majors. There is the applied nutrition and applied approach, which is a non-majors, and then it's called Nutrition for Life, and it's for the more personal nutrition. And of course, we wrote it the same way we wrote the sport nutrition book. It's very much integrated. So we talk about the bone nutrients, we talk about the blood nutrients, we talk about the energy nutrients. And we put a lot of physical activity in there, and to the point where we've even had reviewers say, there's too much exercise in it. And I said, well, if there's too much exercise in the textbook, I'd just suggest you get a different textbook.
Yeah.
Because we're not going to change it.
Yeah, this is
the
the
way
way
we're
it
going
is.
to do it. So
Yeah.
we really modeled it off the sport
initial
nutrition,
one,
which
yeah.
was really at a higher level for like 400 level students, because you had to have been through your anatomy and your physiology, your exercise science, your basic nutrition, and this was sort of trying to pull it together. And where these are for the the 100, 200 level students. So it takes a lot of time.
Yeah, oh, it does. And you can't be chairman of the department and do all that.
No, you cannot. Believe me.
Well, I told you 30 minutes would go fast. It's more than 30 minutes.
So are we
but-
done?
Well, almost.
Okay.
You can't get away that fast.
I can't remember what the third question was.
I don't remember either. but
Okay.
No, I'm just kidding. The third question was more about the summit in particular.
Okay.
And again, you've been involved. You've already pretty much answered it. You've been involved since the beginning, really,
Yeah,
and with the journal as well. You've worked with both Larry and Ed Howley. And I guess the one question I would have is, where do you think it's the summit is where you want it to be at this point? You're on the planning committee, and Mike was telling me some things that you're thinking about, and so what do you think is in store for the future?
Well, I think the one thing about the nutrition track and why I'm sort of passionate about the summit is that I think I'm a dietitian, and I'm very involved in ACSM. And we spent a lot of time trying to get cross-fertilization between those organizations. And the other thing about the summit is there's a lot of people who come that don't have much nutrition knowledge. And so
Yeah.
it's really trying to define the scope of practice. What can we talk about with you, and what can you do? And then where are you going out of your scope of practice, where you're really trying to make dietary recommendations, especially if it's around chronic disease or diet therapy, that maybe that's out of your scope of practice and you ought to be referring. Just like we're trying to get dietitians to say something about physical activity.
Right.
It crosses over so much into
Yeah.
many of our diseases.
Yeah.
And where do they move out of their scope of practice, and where do they need to find that exercise professional that they can say, look, you have diabetes, but you need to see a clinical exercise physiologist
Yeah.
to really understand what kind of exercise program you should be doing when you've got neuropathy.
That's
or you've
great.
got some issues.
Yeah.
So we're trying to cross-fertilize
That's a
and
great
say,
idea.
help those people understand what they can say. And I think it's really important to come to the summit. Talk to exercise specialists that are working with clients that get asked lots of questions about supplements,
Oh, I can imagine.
lots of supplements about weight.
Yeah.
And how can we help educate them so they know, okay, this is factual information and this isn't. But then when they ask me questions that I don't know, where could I send them? And there are RDs that are specialized in sport dietetics, or in most of those people who cross over have double degrees, basically. One in exercise science and one in nutrition, or at least a minor in exercise science, because we're pretty hard on these people, saying you don't be talking yourself of giving exercise training programs when you don't know anything about it. And I have a minor in exercise science in my Ph.D., but I don't do one research project that doesn't have an exercise physiologist on it.
Yeah. Yeah.
You can't keep up on everything.
Right. Right.
And also you come in at things differently, you read different literature. We just finished a high intensity exercise program with some abdominally obese women. I have like 2 exercise physiologists on those. You just need people to help you.
Yeah.
And so I feel like I know a lot about exercise science, but I can't keep up on all this.
Yeah, and that's just a great model to bring to the summit for these people that are on the firing line, that can go out there and to make them realize that you need to do this and you need to do this, and
And you
we can
can't
work
know it all.
together. Yeah, yeah.
Even, I'm not an expert in nutrition and cancer. And if someone comes to me, I'm going to find somebody that can help them that I think really knows nutrition and cancer. At the same time, I'm not, if this person, they said, should you exercise? I would say yes. There's a lot of data that suggests exercise can really help you. And we have exercise physiologist specialists that do exercise in cancer.
Yeah, sure.
So, I mean, I think I can facilitate, but, you know, I have my sort of scope in which I feel comfortable giving advice. But I also think we do, in this day and age, with the obesity and chronic disease, and even the prevention with children, I think people need to have an appreciation for both. And I think the summit, that with our nutrition track, we can do that.
Yeah.
And we're very careful. We only bring in speakers that we know have expertise in their area.
Yeah.
So we know that the information they're getting here is good.
Yeah, you had a good lineup this time.
Yeah.
For sure.
I think so. And all the, I tried to go around and, you know, see who was in the rooms when the nutrition people are there. And there were always a lot of people in there.
Oh,
so
that's good.
I think it was well attended.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much.
No
It was
problem.
nice meeting you.
It was nice meeting you too.